Welcome back, everyone. We're going to do a little longer than normal video on importing Testgen exams into Canvas as Testbanks. This is using McGraw-Hill's Testgen program that allows you to create exams in either paper format or web format. We will obviously be using the web format today, but again, this is using their process to export web-based, web-created exams into Testbanks for use in Canvas. So let's go ahead and get started. We will begin with our typical sandbox, and we will be working here. What we're going to do first is we're going to how we get the items in will be through settings import. But what we first have to do is go to McGraw-Hill. This will assume that everybody has a McGraw-Hill account, and what you have to do is go to the current book you're using, current edition, and for instance, I'm using Intro Sociology 5th edition. And I'm going to use my master shell. And what we need is go into the actual course, and we want to go to the library option. As whatever course you're in, you want to go to the library option. And we want to look for what's called instructor resources. And we click on instructor resources, and it takes us to a page that allows us to browse by contents, by instructor manuals, test banks, PowerPoints, or image banks. What we're looking for is a test bank. And you will have to download and install Testgen for Windows or Testgen for Mac. We will be focusing on the Windows, but the actual process is the same for both Windows and Mac. The install is a little bit different, but if you have a Mac, you know how to install. But we will go through the process of installing the Windows and using the Windows version. So you'll have to download and install Testgen for Windows and also the Testbank files. Some publishers will include those files as part of the Testgen software, but for the sake of this video, you'll have to download Testgen files and Testgen for Windows. And I've already done that. I'm going to go ahead and show you that I've saved them in a folder. And you just need to remember what folder you put them in. They are in my Testgen is the software. Testbank files is a secondary file you have to download. This actually is the program you install. These are the files that will contain all the test banks for your specific edition. I've exported, or let me go ahead and delete this. What you need to do for these Testgen files is right-click on this and hit extract all, and this will actually extract the file. This one right here is what the program will search for once you install it, and it will do that automatically. And once you install this Testgen, which is right down here, you get it installed, it will search your computer for any test banks that are from the publisher, and you can see I've got two, sociology and modules and social psychology. But we're going to be focusing on this one. Doesn't really matter which one we focus on for examples, but I'm going to use my intro book as an example. And so once you run Testgen and install it, it'll ask you, do you want to search for those test banks? You hit yes, and it'll take a few minutes to install. But once it finds it, it will load up here. So each time that you open up Testgen, you'll be presented with these two, or however many you have, test banks. And what we want to do to create a test in Testgen is go to Web Test and click on Web Test, and you'll see you'll be presented with an empty page over here. And so what you have to do is go over here and you have to expand out your book, your test bank, and this book is designed around modules and as well chapters. And so I'm not going to import modules because they're a little bit smaller. I'm going to import complete chapters. So I'm going to scroll down to chapter 1, and you can highlight the entire chapter and click and drag and just drop it over, and it's going to say, are you sure you want to import 115 questions to your test? We hit yes. And depending on how fast or how slow your computer is, it will load up these questions. Now, I don't use short answers in my quizzes or exams. I develop my own questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete these. We don't want these dropped into a test bank that might accidentally pull those into our quizzes or exams. So I'm going to scroll down, highlight the first one, hold down your shift button, click on the last one. You'll see they're all highlighted, and we're going to go ahead and hit the delete button. And it says, are you sure you want to delete these current? And I say, yes, we are. So we go back to just true, false, and just multiple choice. And so this will allow us to pull from 104 questions in any quiz we create for this chapter. And you'll see that you have all of these. So what we're going to do now is we're going to right click in this area, pick anywhere you want over here, and just right click. And we're going to hit export. And you have different options. You have extended format, easy edit, HTML, PDF, practice, Blackboard, QTI, Moodle, Sakai, I think, and Desire to Learn, which is D2L. We're going to use the QTI. This is the easiest way to get into Canvas, is the QTI method. And we're going to hit QTI, and we're going to hit OK. It's going to pull up a window, and I've already saved them, but I'm going to go ahead and just overwrite. I'm going to choose Chapter 1, and we want to call it Chapter 1 Zip. And it's, by default, it's going to be a zip file. And so whatever you name it here will be the name that it kind of transposes into Canvas. You can change it later on, but it makes it a little bit easier to identify going forward that this is your Chapter 1 test bank. And we're going to hit save. And yes, we're going to go ahead and replace it. And it's going to export it out. Fantastic. And then at this point, you can either close the whole program, you can save this if you want. I'm just going to go ahead and minimize it. And we're going to go back to Canvas, into our sandbox. And so now we have to import that zip file into our course. And we're going to go to Settings, and we're going to go over to Import Course Content. Many of you would be familiar with this, or hopefully familiar with this, by copying courses or importing other past courses. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose Content Type, and we're going to pull in a QTI zip file. And so we're going to use this one right here at the bottom, and we're going to go choose our file, and we're going to go to Testbanks, and we're going to hit Chapter 1. So remember where you save that file. Desktop is easiest, downloads is easiest. Just make sure it's easy to find. We hit open, and we're going to create a new question bank, and we're going to call it Chapter 1 to make it easy to find later on when we build our exams. We hit import, and it will take a few moments. And you can do all of these at once. You can do them one at a time. It really doesn't matter. And so we have a completed import. So we're going to go over to our quizzes. And when you import a quiz or a quiz bank, it's going to create a quiz with 104 questions worth 10 points. I'm not sure why it creates it at 10 points. It just does. But we don't want a quiz with 104 questions. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this quiz. Okay. And we're going to click on these little toolbar, the three dots. We're going to hit Manage Question Banks. And you see you now have a question bank with 104 questions imported on April 13th at 3:11 p.m., which is today, a few minutes ago. So you have it for Chapter 1. Again, you can rename this whatever you want, so it's easily identifiable later on. So we're going to go back to our quizzes. Let's go ahead and create a quiz based upon that quiz bank. And we're going to hit our action button to add a quiz. And we're going to call this quiz, or Chapter 1 quiz. And we're going to say it covers Chapter 1. And this down here, you can put in your time limit. We're going to give them 15 minutes. You can allow multiple attempts. So we're going to give them 5 attempts with the highest score being recorded. And we're going to provide available dates from today, and maybe it's due this Saturday. We're going to make it due this Saturday at 11:59 p.m. And so now the students will be able to take it from any time from April 13th to April 18th. They're going to get 15 minutes to take it once they open it, and 5 attempts with the highest score being recorded. Now you can obviously uncheck these and give them unlimited time, only 1 attempt. But again, pulling a certain amount of questions from 104, you can randomize this. What we're going to do is we're going to now create a question group. using that bank. And we can call it, I usually just leave this as group or group 1. We're going to pull 10 questions worth 2 points apiece. And we're going to link this question group to a question bank. And we're going to call it chapter 1. We're going to refer to it, pull from chapter 1 bank. So this is why we give them very easily identifiable names so we can find it easier, because sometimes you have remnants of older ones still showing up. So we want to make sure we can find one that is easily identifiable. Select our bank. So now before we hit save and publish, we know that we're going to have 10 questions worth 2 points apiece that are going to pull from the chapter 1 bank. We're going to create group. And so now we have a quiz worth 20 points that opens up on the 13th of April and closes on the 18th of April. Students will have 15 minutes to complete an exam with 5 attempts allowed, with the highest score being recorded. Now in here you can hit highest, latest, or average. Just stick with highest or whatever you prefer. And we're going to go ahead and hit save and publish. And so now we have a published quiz. Students can see it, worth 20 points. Answers are not shuffled, 15 minutes, multiple attempts, highest score recorded, 5 attempts total. So the students will be able to see everything they want to see about this quiz. And we can hit preview. And you'll see that it pulls in 10 questions. But the nice thing is about creating those quiz groups, it will pull 10 different questions in each time for those students. So if you give them 5 attempts, more often than not, they're going to get 10 different questions each time. So they can go back and take the quiz 5 different times, and most likely they'll get 5 different sets of questions. And so we will hit submit quiz, or we can go over here and just back out over here. And so if we go to our quiz section, we now have 1 chapter quiz. So pulling in or using Testgen to create a test bank allows us to use the publisher's information, publisher's textbooks, as a source of information. You can add your own test banks to include in these, but you can just, again, you can, as a starting point, using the publisher's information, publisher's work that comes along with what the students pay for, what we agree to. You can use their information, their banks, to create a starting point and go from there. And again, if you wanted to add another question bank for, say, lecture questions, you can create your own questions and pull from that bank as well and mix them together. So if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to ask. But the idea is that we want to, provide a starting point. It's easy. It provides a lot of questions in one bank. You can pull, you can randomize a lot faster as you build up your own test bank. So if there's anything else you may want to see, please feel free to ask. Please feel free to email. My email is located at the bottom of this outro. So other than that, have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.